It is fished every day and in nearly every ocean on the planet. An immense volume is captured and processed to keep up with the insatiable appetite of global demand. It is served in trendy restaurants around the world and in tin cans for school lunches. They are among the most valuable commodities in the ocean. It's tuna. Yellowfin, big eye, albacore, and skipjack. 4.5 million tons of tuna are caught each year, and nearly half of the global supply is caught in the Western and Central Pacific. It's a $5 billion a year industry and an economic lifeline for dozens of island nations. But for how much longer?
People consider the ocean an endless bounty, but the ocean is far from unlimited.
Inside Out takes you to the richest fishing grounds on the planet, where fleets of fishing vessels equipped with sonar, sophisticated satellite tracking devices, and even aerial spotters are catching millions of tons of tuna, making it the third most harvested fish in the ocean.
Tuna are part of the breadbasket of the world. If we lose that from the ecosystems, that's going to be a significant loss to everyone.
Technology is making it easier to catch tuna. Now, the race is on to see if it can help save not only the tuna, but a way of life.
The Pacific is so dependent on these fisheries resources that a collapse could be devastating, and it might be decades for them to recover from that, if at all.
The fisheries of the Western and Central Pacific cover 40 million square kilometers. It's a vast area populated by small island countries, which, according to international law, own all of the fish within 200 miles of their coastline. But most countries can't afford Navy ships or airplanes to patrol their waters, leaving their prized fishing grounds a target for ocean thieves. 17 of the countries are part of an alliance that help manage and protect their most valuable asset: fish. Inside a sophisticated control room in Honiara, a multinational task force for the Pacific Islands Forum Fisheries Agency is tracking some 2,000 commercial ships that are operating within the jurisdiction of the Pacific Island countries.
It's an interesting track. It's not licensed, so it should not be doing those tracks. This is definitely not innocent passage.
Each ship transmits a signal that is similar to an airplane transponder, and that provides vital clues as to whether the boat is operating legally.
This is our aim, to try and identify the good guys from the bad guys.
The Vessel Monitoring System, or VMS, is an essential tool in preventing illegal and unreported fishing within the exclusive economic zones of its member countries.
Fishing is their one and only source of revenue, and licensing of that fishing and keeping it strictly legal is what we're all about.
Detecting an illegal fishing boat on a computer is one thing. Catching them in the act in the middle of the ocean requires air power.
One of the main things we're looking for is vessels meeting up.
Commander Mike Pounder is with the Australian Navy and is overseeing Operation Kuru Kuru, one of the largest enforcement operations ever mounted.
And then a sweep around the southern portion of the EEZ boundary to come around and pick these vessels up here.
Australia and New Zealand have both sent their P-3 Orion aircraft in support of the effort to crack down on illegal fishing. Wing Commander Rob Shearer pilots the P-3 Orion, the same aircraft used in the search of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which disappeared in March 2014.
So as you can see at the front window there, the first fishing contact, which is radar 42 on my plot.
The aircraft carries a crew of 13 and can stay in the air 8 hours, allowing it to cover a tremendous area. More importantly, it has military-grade surveillance systems that can spot illegal activities long before a fishing vessel can spot them.
We do two things. One, we will detect any illegal, unregistered or unregulated fishermen, but also by being up here and patrolling regularly, we've provided deterrence effect. So we will, in effect, stop the guys from the bad behaviours. We have the radar, got a very good electro-optics camera. You know, with a very big place, you need good surveillance assets to detect that kind of behaviour.
The P3 flies low and records video and photos of every boat.
Bravo, Yankee. 3 minutes taken, order complete.
The information is fed back to the command centre for review. In this surveillance video, a fishing boat is caught unloading their catch to a supercarrier, which is among the biggest offences.
Transshipping is one of our biggest loopholes when it comes to the monitoring of fish. Transshipment is just a very big area where it has potential for illegal acts, misreporting of catch, and for distorting the actual figures that go into logbooks.
While the P3 flies overhead, patrol boats from the Solomon Islands are preparing to board a large tanker that's just arrived in port.
Good morning.
Yes,
Are you the captain of the boat?
Yes.
The boat's records are inspected to be sure every fish is accounted for. Although illegal fishing continues to be a serious problem, these enforcement operations put potential thieves on notice that they will be tracked down.
We have a huge amount of responsibility to safeguard these fish stocks for the future.
Andrew Hudson, an ocean management expert for the United Nations Development Programme, says the vessel monitoring system has done more than just protect the tuna.
The focus of our work in the Pacific and in other parts of the world as well has been on tuna species as the keystone, as the key economic source of livelihoods and revenues for these countries. But even though we're focusing on tuna, we're doing it in the context of ecosystem approach. That the tuna are embedded in a much more complex and larger ecosystem, from the smallest microbes and plankton up to the larger species that are both the prey and the predators for the tuna.
Understanding the ocean ecosystem is as important as protecting it. New technology is helping scientists answer the single most important question: how many fish are in the ocean and how many can be sustainably caught? Just how long can the bounty of the Western and Central Pacific survive the human appetite? While skipjack are still abundant, the prized bluefin is already overfished, and big eye and yellowfin stocks are declining.
The harvest rate's been increasing dramatically over the last 10 years, and that in itself puts more and more pressure on the stocks, and so we expect over the next 5 to 10 years that these stocks are going to get closer and closer to the line of sustainability. And for us, making sure that they don't cross that line is the real challenge.
Fresh fish.
But overfishing is just one of many threats to the tuna and other fish stocks.
You're looking at probably 4 or 5 key issues or threats that the oceans face. One is overfishing. Another one, of course, is pollution. The next one is invasive species, mainly those carried by ships, and the rate at which we're modifying ocean habitat. And then, of course, climate change. It's causing sea level rise, it's causing ocean warming, but it also has a much more pernicious effect, which is ocean acidification.
No one stands to lose more if the tuna are gone than the people of the island countries. And it's why the United Nations Development Programme, along with the Global Environment Facility, made significant investments to improve the management of the fisheries.
It was a milestone event for fisheries management, putting in place a very advanced fisheries regime in terms of compliance monitoring, in terms of ecosystem-based approach based on sound science to set appropriate levels of fishing to sustain the resource.
Managing the tuna fisheries depends upon knowing more about what tuna do in the ocean. Researchers for the Secretariat of the Pacific Community are tagging thousands of them with devices that will provide important data, not only about the tuna, but the entire ocean ecosystem.
The tuna are talking to us, and and they've got a story to tell, and we're listening. We have what's called conventional tagging. That tells us about how many of the fish are being caught, and that gives us an indication of sustainability, where these tuna are living. It also tells us about how much they move, and so we get to listen by this technology.
There are 3 types of tuna tags, each one designed to deliver different scientific information. Smaller tuna, such as skipjack, carry the yellow plastic tags, which provide basic data, such as how fast they've grown and how far they've travelled from the time they were tagged. Red plastic tags on larger tuna, such as yellowfin and big eye, signify that they have also been implanted with an electronic tag, with sensors that collect continuous data on how deep the fish swim for food, the ocean temperature and light levels, from which approximate geographical positions can be determined. Adult big eye and yellowfin tuna are large enough to carry a satellite tag, which is designed to release from the tuna at a predetermined time and transmit its data to researchers. The tagging essentially allows the tuna to talk to scientists, who will use the information to protect them from being overfished. General Santos in the Philippines is one of the busiest fishing ports in the world.
Any tag, any tag, tag?
Tuna Tag Recovery Officer Caroline Sanchez is here to collect tags that were placed inside tuna by researchers and then caught by fishermen.
Maybe there's some more coming down, okay? So if you find tag fish, you call us. Tuna tagging is extremely important for us to have information about growth as well as migration. It's all about traceability of the fish. When did you find the tag? Here? Okay. To collect a tag is one thing, to make sure that the data provided by the finder is correct is another thing. We have to trace back where the fish has been caught, how it has been caught. What is the most important for them is to assess their stock and manage the stock of tuna, knowing how much fish they need to take to be able to have a sustainable fishery. Okay, thank you. Yes. The incentive for a finder to report the tag to us is of course a reward, so go up to $250 for an archival tag and $10 for conventional, the spaghetti tag, and it's working pretty well.
More than 60,000 conventional tags and 1,400 electronic tags have been released. The recovered tags provide clues as to the health of the tuna stocks.
We're using tuna tags as a way of being able to break the barrier between their language and our ability to interpret that.
Yeah. This one was in 2011 and we received it only now.
The real key for us and the real advantage we have is that we've been able to learn that having very, very good knowledge is what's really important.
This split here, that's probably in a pretty good place.
Computer models reveal the dramatic increase in tuna catches and present a difficult challenge for scientists like Joel Rice and Simon Hoyle, whose assessments will determine what can be sustainably taken from the ocean.
We see that not only the extent of the fishery has changed, it's definitely grown, but also the magnitude.
That's right, we're seeing the purseine fishery is really growing here.
Among the most important data is how many fish are being harvested with the use of FADs, or fish aggregating devices. FADs are both controversial and effective. They float on the ocean surface with a long tail that attracts small fish, which then attract bigger fish, such as tuna and other species. When there is an ample supply of fish beneath the FAD, a signal is sent to the fishing vessel, which moves in for the catch. Today's FADs drift with the ocean current. In the future, FADs might have more sophisticated sensors attached that can collect data on precisely what kind of biomass is beneath it. This information can help fishing companies avoid bycatch, such as sharks and turtles, and could send data in real time to scientists.
Technology's had a big play in increasing the catch of tunas, but at the same time, technology has the big opportunity to assist us with ensuring that catch is sustainable. And in this way, not only do the fishing companies win, but also we win and the tuna win in that we get a much better understanding of the life cycle of tunas.
Tuna are ocean athletes. The larger species, such as bluefin, big eye and yellowfin, are known to swim thousands of miles. They are fast and agile. A yellowfin tuna can swim 47 miles per hour, making it a formidable ocean predator. And what they consume in their journey through the ocean provides clues as to the health of the entire ocean ecosystem.
Which predator was it?
There was a big-eyed tuna.
Dr. Valerie Allon is an ocean biologist. Her team has studied the contents of thousands of tuna over the past decade.
What we're trying to do with looking at the stomach content is to have a vision of the ecosystem, the global ecosystem. Stock assessment is mainly based on the target species and how do they evolve and if they are sustainable or not. But we also need to know all the information of what's going on below the tuna level.
What researchers see under the microscope and through computer models will have global implications, from commercial operations that process tuna for the global market to Pacific Islanders who depend on tuna for their daily sustenance.
If we lose our tuna, we lose our entire way of life.
Nowhere are people more protective of their fisheries than in the Western Central Pacific. It's a way of life. It defines their culture. It's how islanders make their living and feed their families. And without it, everything falls apart. In the coastal village of Noro, in the Solomon Islands, the morning commute consists of islanders boarding the company van bound for the Seoul tuna processing plant.
How many tons for today?
60 tons.
25-year-old Hati Matamaru is one of 1,700 Solomon Islanders making a living at the Seoul tuna processing plant.
That's really good. Yeah, nice cleaning, maintaining this one. It's really good.
Here, 100 metric tons of tuna are skinned, deboned, processed, canned and packaged every single day.
This skinnery, it's really important to the people here, to their lives, to their families, and to the surrounding communities as well. We're worried if the tuna stock is gone, because the job here depends very much on the fish that we have in our waters.
The same tuna that provides jobs at the Seoul tuna processing plant also keeps a small fleet of Solomon fishing boats working.
Okay guys, stand by. Go.
The Solomon Ruby is heading to sea in the hopes of catching 350 metric tons of skipjack tuna.
Solomon Emerald, copy.
Fishmaster Junior de la Verata grew up in the Solomons and commands a crew of his fellow islanders. The Solomons are fertile grounds for tuna, and in the 20 years he's been fishing, he says technology has become an essential tool in the boat cockpit.
It's quite easier now when there's a spot of fish 100 meters away. The sonar can tell you the density of the fish, how many tons there is, how deep it is and how far it is.
It's not long before a large school of tuna are spotted and the crew races to prepare for what's known as a set on the purse seine boat. With the set complete, it's time to gather the catch. Raising the nets closes the purse, and before long, hundreds of tons of tuna start coming up over the rail. As the tuna make their way to the icy hold below deck, an observer records data on how much is caught and if there's any bycatch.
That data is so important for us, fisheries managers and scientists, to analyze fishing data within the region. This is my place, it's my fish, so I have to take the responsibility to ensure that it's properly managed and looked after.
The only way to know how many fish are left in the ocean is to know precisely how many are being taken out. With thousands of boats fishing for tuna, collecting accurate data is essential for managing the fisheries. On board the Ruby, new electronic logbooks provide scientists with photos, GPS waypoints, and other important information that is shared with scientists.
This device is called the FAD tracker. We use this to record all the amount of catch that we have on the FADs and the size and species. This information is really important to regulate the amount of boats that are working here and amount of fish that we get out from the oceans.
Technology is a double-edged sword. It can be used to great detriment of the stocks. However, helping the scientists with the latest in technology to ensure that accurate data is collected on a regular basis so that the scientists can give the fisheries managers in the region the right information.
The majority of all tuna caught is by purse-seine boats. And although the fishing is still good, Junior worries about the future.
As a Pacific Islander myself, I would ask one question. Will the next generation enjoy this industry as we do now? It's so very easy to catch fish. That's the worrying part. More boats, more fish harvested from the sea.
Not far from the Ruby, its sister ship, the Soltai 105, is preparing to head to sea in search of tuna. But instead of using large purse-seine nets, they'll use bamboo poles and steel hooks to catch tuna.
There's a beauty about pole and line. It's a very sustainable fishing style of fishing. It's environment friendly. We don't harm other bycatches. Everybody on the boat is from the Solomon Islands.
It will take the crew of 35 nearly a week to catch what a purse-seine crew can do in a few hours. Pole and line operations are by far the most sustainable. The trouble is, it's impossible to catch enough tuna to supply the local cannery, let alone a global demand. But as consumers become more aware of how and where their fish comes from, pole and line caught tuna may well be what customers demand at trendy restaurants.
More and more every day, people are becoming more aware of how products are being treated, especially with something like tuna. It's very important to know where your fish is coming from and who is bringing it to you. We want to make sure that it's done in a responsible way as well.
In the past 10 years, more boats with bigger capacity have been licensed to fish in the Western and Central Pacific. Catch rates have more than doubled. For now, it is still the most productive fishery on the planet, but the oceans are sending a clear signal.
We've got this upward increase in the amount of biomass coming out, and at some point the system's got to give. But where that is always the unknown, and that always is going to keep you up at night knowing that we haven't overstepped our responsibilities.
We'll know we got it right when we can say that the island nations are fishing sustainably, they're enforcing the laws they've committed to, they have put in place the monitoring compliance mechanisms and tools that they need to sustain the fishery going forward, enjoying the jobs, the incomes, the livelihood creation. That would be a true model of sustainability, not only environmental sustainability, but social and economic sustainability for the people.
The oceans are talking to us. If we listen to them, they will continue to provide for generations to come.